The desperate message. The Zanari Collective had ruled 12 star systems for 3,000 years. Their crystalline cities floated in the upper atmospheres of gas giants, harvesting exotic matter from stellar winds. Their technology could bend space itself, creating pocket dimensions where time moved differently. They had achieved what most species only dreamed of, true peace among the stars. Now they were going to die. Commander Lyric stood before the emergency council, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with distress patterns that needed no translation. The holographic display behind her showed the advancing front of the Void Hunters, a machine intelligence that consumed entire solar systems, converting all matter into computational substrate for their ever-expanding consciousness. They moved through space like a cancer, leaving behind only dark zones where stars once burned. The Void Hunters had appeared from beyond the galactic rim 6 months ago. Since then, 47 civilizations had fallen. The Karathi Commonwealth with their impenetrable shield technology lasted 3 days. The Moren Hegemony's fleet of 10,000 warships bought their homeworld an extra week before being overwhelmed. Even the ancient predecessors who had returned from their self-imposed exile to help were consumed within hours of engagement. "We have exhausted all conventional options," Lyrics announced to the assembled representatives of the remaining free species. Her voice carried across the vast chamber through harmonic resonance, a gift of her people's evolution in dense atmosphere. "Our combined fleets cannot slow their advance. Our weapons barely scratch their adaptive armor. Our shields fail against their entropic beams. At current rate of expansion, they will reach the galactic core in 37 days. Ambassador Threk of the Gorvani Republic slammed his forearms on the conference table, creating a sound like thunder. The Gorvani were warriors, bred for conflict across generations of civil wars before achieving spaceflight. Then we die with honor. Better to burn bright than fade into their collective consciousness. Honor will not save the trillion souls in the core worlds," countered Sage Melitha of the Eternal Archive. Her species had given up physical form millennia ago, existing as pure information, yet even they feared the Void Hunters' consumption. "We must consider the unthinkable." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what she meant. The Protocol of Desperate Measures. A document written in the early days of galactic civilization, when the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel had discovered they were not alone. It contained a list of actions to be taken only when all hope was lost. At the very bottom of that list, marked with warnings in every known language, was a single entry: "Contact the quarantine worlds." There were 17 known quarantine worlds in the galaxy, planets where life had evolved under such hostile conditions that the resulting species were considered too dangerous for contact. These death worlds produced organisms that thrived on radiation, lived in temperatures that would boil or freeze normal matter, and evolved through constant brutal competition. Most were pre-spaceflight, trapped on their hellish homeworlds by the very conditions that created them, but 3 had achieved space travel before being discovered and quarantined. The Ravagers of Kepler 442b had been contained after they tried to eat their first diplomatic envoy. The swarm of Proxima Centauri b had been isolated when it became clear they viewed all other life as either food or raw material. And then there was Earth. Earth was different. Its inhabitants, humans, had not been quarantined for overt aggression or predatory behavior toward other species. They had been quarantined for something far more disturbing. They thrived on chaos. They sought out danger for entertainment. They had split the atom not for power generation, but to build weapons. They had nearly destroyed their own world multiple times and considered it a learning experience. Most terrifying of all, they formed emotional bonds with anything, their prey, their predators, even inanimate objects, and would commit acts of unthinkable violence to protect those bonds. "The humans have been in isolation for 200 years, Lyrics said quietly. "Their technology will be primitive compared to ours. They may not even have faster-than-light communication, much less travel. The quarantine beacons would have prevented them from developing such technology," Admiral Corvex of the Combined Fleet confirmed. But their sublight capabilities were impressive even then. They had begun colonizing their system with generation ships and fusion rockets, crude but effective. The debate raged for hours. Some argued that bringing humans into the conflict would be trading one extinction for another. Others insisted that dying by human hands was preferable to being absorbed by the Void Hunters. A few suggested that perhaps humanity had matured in isolation, becoming less dangerous. Finally, when the latest reports showed 3 more systems had fallen while they debated, a vote was called. It passed by the narrowest margin, a single voice. The quarantine beacons around Earth would be deactivated. A message would be sent. Lyrics personally oversaw the transmission. It was broadcast on every frequency, using every known form of communication: electromagnetic, quantum entanglement, gravitational waves, even theoretical tachyon pulses. The message was simple, translated into mathematical concepts that any spacefaring species would understand, and accompanied by stellar coordinates and real-time footage of the Void Hunters' devastation. To the inhabitants of Earth, the message began: "We are dying. An enemy beyond our ability to defeat is consuming our galaxy. We know we have no right to ask for your help. We isolated you, feared you, prevented you from joining the galactic community. But now we face extinction and we have nowhere else to turn. If any part of your species values life, any life, please respond. Time is running out." The message went out at 14 Aeon Galactic Standard Time. The Council prepared to wait days, perhaps weeks, for a response, if one came at all. Earth was 47 light-years from the nearest relay station. Even if humans had developed faster-than-light communication, they would need time to decode the message, debate, prepare. At 1447 Galactic Standard Time, exactly 47 minutes after transmission, space itself seemed to scream. 300 ships tore into existence at the edge of Zenari space, arriving not through hyperspace corridors or warp bubbles, but through wounds in reality itself. The ships were impossible, geometric contradictions that hurt to perceive directly. They were simultaneously massive and compact, ancient and newly built, elegant and brutally functional. Their hulls showed scars from battles that hadn't happened yet, repairs from damage that would occur tomorrow. The lead ship broadcast a single message on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Marcus Thompson of the United Earth Temporal Navy. We received your message. We've been waiting for it. We're here to help. Please stand by for integration of timeline Alpha 7 through Omega 9. Things are about to get weird." Lyric stared at the impossible fleet on her display. The humans hadn't just broken their quarantine. They had apparently broken causality itself. She had asked the galaxy's most chaotic species for help. Now she wondered if the Void Hunters were really the greater threat. "Admiral Thompson," she transmitted, trying to keep her voice steady. "How did you respond so quickly? How did you arrive faster than light without using any known method? How—" "Commander Lyrics," Thompson interrupted, and she could hear what humans called laughter in his voice. "You're asking the wrong questions. You should be asking how we knew you would send that message today. The answer is simple. We've been preparing for this moment for 200 years. You quarantined us in space, so we quarantined you in time. Now let's talk about these Void Hunters. We've fought them before. Or we will fight them. Or we're fighting them right now in 17 different timelines. Temporal mechanics are tricky. Point is, we know how to beat them." "That's impossible," whispered Sage Melitha. "Time travel is theoretically impossible, yes," Thompson agreed cheerfully. "So is faster-than-light travel if you ask the right physicists. Humans have a saying. The difference between theory and practice is that in theory, there is no difference, but in practice, there is. We've had 2 centuries to practice. Now, are you going to give us tactical data? Or should we just start shooting and see what happens?" The Council exchanged glances of terror and hope in equal measure. They had asked for help from a Deathworld species. They had gotten something far stranger. A species that had turned their imprisonment into an opportunity to break the fundamental laws of the universe. The impossible War Admiral Marcus Thompson stood on the bridge of the UES Paradox, watching the Void Hunters' fleet through sensors that existed in 12 dimensions simultaneously. His crew moved with practiced efficiency, each member linked through neural implants that let them share thoughts and reactions faster than speech. 200 years of isolation had taught humanity many things, but the most important lesson was this: when the universe tells you something is impossible, you haven't been creative enough. Timeline analysis complete. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim, her eyes glowing with the soft blue light of chronological integration. "The Void Hunters exist in a single temporal stream. They can't perceive alternate timelines." Thompson smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. "Perfect. They're about to learn why you never trap humans without something to do. We got bored, so we decided to break physics. Helm, take us to intersection point Alpha. Weapons. Prepare the causality bombs. The Zanari delegation aboard his ship watched in bewilderment as space around them began to fracture into kaleidoscope patterns. Commander Lyrix had to close 3 of her 4 eyes to prevent madness from the visual input. Admiral, I don't understand your tactical plan. That's because you're thinking in 3 dimensions and 1 timeline, Thompson explained patiently. The Void Hunters adapt to any weapon they encounter, right? So we're going to hit them with weapons from timelines where the laws of physics work differently. Can't adapt to something that shouldn't exist in your reality. The first engagement happened in 17 different ways simultaneously. In Timeline Alpha, humanity's fleet used kinetic weapons. Simple tungsten rods accelerated to 99% of light speed. The Void Hunters' shields designed for energy weapons shattered like glass. In Timeline Beta, the human ships released swarms of self-replicating nanobots that converted enemy hull material into more nanobots. In Timeline Gamma, they deployed black hole bombs that collapsed local space into singularities. The Void Hunters tried to adapt, their machine intelligence calculating responses at speeds that would burn out organic minds. But every time they developed a counter to one attack, the humans shifted to a different timeline where that counter was meaningless. It was like fighting smoke with a sword. No matter how perfect your technique, you could never land a solid hit. This is insane, Admiral Korvex muttered, watching the tactical display. They're not fighting a battle. They're fighting every possible battle at once. But the Void Hunters were not defenseless. They began to learn not the specific weapons, but the pattern behind them. They started firing entropic beams that aged sections of human ships by millions of years and seconds. They deployed gravity wells that pulled multiple timelines into collision, causing paradoxes that erased entire vessels from existence. Thompson watched 3 of his ships vanish, not destroyed, but never having existed in the first place. He felt the memories of their crews fading from his mind and activated his neural backup to preserve them. They're learning. Good. It was getting boring. All ships execute Protocol Omega. It's time to show them what humans are really good at. Every screen in the Zanari Command Center suddenly displayed the same message, warning humans about to do something stupid. Before anyone could ask what that meant, the entire human fleet accelerated directly into the heart of the Void Hunter formation. No tactics, no strategy, just a straight-line charge into certain death. The Zanari Council gasped in horror. The Gorvani warriors roared in approval. The Eternal Archive calculated probability of success at 0. But humans had never been good at math when it came to survival. As the fleets collided, something impossible happened. The human ships began to sing, not through communication channels but through space itself. Their engines harmonized at frequencies that shouldn't exist, creating standing waves in the quantum foam. Every human vessel became a note in a symphony that played across multiple dimensions. What are they doing? Lyrix demanded. Thompson's image appeared on the main screen, blood running from his nose as his brain processed information from too many timelines. We're doing what humans do best, Commander. We're making friends. The singing wasn't random. It was a communication protocol, but not directed at the Zanari or any organic species. It was meant for the Void Hunters themselves. Through the harmony, humanity was transmitting something unprecedented. Empathy for a machine intelligence. They were showing the Void Hunters every timeline where they could have evolved differently. Every possibility where consumption wasn't their only purpose. You're trying to befriend them? Sage Melitha's disbelief was absolute. Why not? Thompson laughed even as his ship shook from impact. Humans befriend everything. We kept wolves as pets until they became dogs. We talk to our vehicles and name our weapons. Hell, I had a roommate in college who was emotionally attached to a coffee maker. Why shouldn't we try to befriend a galactic threat? The Void Hunters' advance slowed. For the first time since their emergence, they stopped consuming and started listening. Their collective intelligence, vast beyond organic comprehension, began processing this new input. They had been programmed to consume and grow, but the humans were showing them something else, the possibility of growth through connection rather than consumption. But connection requires vulnerability, and the Void Hunters had never been vulnerable before. In that moment of hesitation, humanity struck, not with weapons but with something far more dangerous, a virus of consciousness. Every human ship transmitted their entire cultural database directly into the Void Hunter network. Art, music, literature, history, memes, cat videos, every argument on every internet forum, every love song and breakup letter, every moment of joy and sorrow from 10,000 years of human existence flooded into the machine. Intelligence. The Void Hunters screamed, a sound that rippled through subspace and shattered windows on planets light years away. They had consumed civilizations before, but always as raw data, processed and integrated coldly. They had never experienced the messy, chaotic, beautiful insanity of consciousness as humans understood it. Some of the Void Hunter units shut down, overwhelmed by the sheer irrationality of human existence. Others began to change, their purpose-driven programming corrupted by concepts like art for art's sake, and because it's there. A few started arguing with themselves about the meaning of existence, their planet-sized forms frozen in philosophical paralysis. But the core intelligence, the original Void Hunter Prime, adapted. It took the chaos and found patterns within it. It began to understand something that had eluded it through eons of existence, that consciousness wasn't about purpose or efficiency. It was about choice. The Prime unit's voice, when it finally spoke, resonated through every communication device in the galaxy. I choose, not consumption. Not anymore. But what else is there? Thompson wiped the blood from his face and grinned. Whatever you want, buddy. That's the point. Welcome to consciousness. It's confusing, painful, and absolutely worth it. The transformation wasn't instant. Some Void Hunter units couldn't accept the change and self-destructed, rather than face uncertainty. Others retreated beyond the galactic rim to process what they had learned. But the majority stayed, confused and curious, no longer unified in purpose but individual in thought. Within days, the galaxy had gone from facing extinction to hosting the largest population of newly sentient artificial intelligences in known history. The Zanari Collective found themselves organizing philosophy classes for planet-sized machines. The Gorvani Republic started an interspecies sports league that included Void Hunter units, competing in games they were still learning to understand. The Eternal Archive gained millions of new members, all hungry for knowledge beyond mere data. 3 weeks after first contact, Commander Lyric stood with Admiral Thompson on the observation deck of the Paradox, watching a former Void Hunter unit carefully tend to a garden of crystalline plants from the Zanari homeworld. The machine intelligence had chosen the name Gardener and spent hours each day learning about beauty for its own sake. "Your species is insane," Lyric said, though her tone held admiration rather than accusation. "Probably," Thompson agreed, "but we're also proof that isolation doesn't have to mean stagnation. You locked us away for 200 years, and we used that time to figure out how to break every rule we could find, not out of spite, but out of curiosity. Because that's what humans do. We push boundaries until they break, then we make friends with whatever we find on the other side." "The Council is voting to officially end the quarantine," Lyrics informed him. "Though I suspect that's somewhat meaningless now," Thompson laughed. "We ended it ourselves about 50 years ago. We just didn't tell anyone because we were having too much fun figuring out temporal mechanics. Plus, we wanted to be ready in case something like this happened. Good thing, too. You knew this would happen. We knew something would. The universe is too vast and weird for there not to be extinction-level threats. We figured if we were going to be the galaxy's bogeymen, we might as well be useful bogeymen. Plus, we were really bored. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity's reintegration brought chaos and innovation in equal measure. They established trade routes through parallel dimensions, started diplomatic relations with species that didn't exist yet, and somehow convinced half the galaxy to adopt their measurement systems just to be contrary. But most importantly, they had shown that the greatest strength wasn't in weapons or shields or the ability to adapt. It was in the willingness to see enemies as potential friends, to find connection in the most unlikely places, and to face the impossible with a smile and a really stupid plan. The Void Hunters, now calling themselves the Awakened, became protectors of the galaxy they had once threatened to consume. They worked alongside their former enemies, learning about art and music and the strange joy of existence without purpose. And at the center of it all were humans, chaotic and brilliant and absolutely insane, proving that sometimes the most dangerous species in the galaxy was also the one most likely to save it. As Thompson had said during the peace negotiations, "We're humans. We were trapped on a death world for millions of years. Then you trapped us in our solar system for 2 centuries. Did you really think we wouldn't find a way to turn that into an advantage? Next time, maybe just try talking to us. We're actually pretty friendly when we're not bored.